I couldn't sleep that night, though I told myself it was just stress. I paced the living room, my hands gripping the edge of the coffee table. Maybe I'm overthinking, I muttered to no one, though I knew the voice was hollow. Every corner of our apartment smelled of familiarity, and now betrayal. Earlier I had heard it. A laugh. Her voice, soft but urgent, spilling words that weren't meant for me. I froze outside the closed door, listening, my heart hammering like a drum in my chest. I can't stop thinking about you, she whispered. I've never felt this alive with anyone. Alive. With someone else. I wanted to knock, scream, demand answers. But I didn't. My body refused. My brain spun in disbelief. I backed away, hands trembling, and I sank onto the sofa. Silence swallowed me. The next morning I forced myself into routine. Coffee brewed, toast burned slightly, and she appeared in the kitchen, smiling, brushing hair behind her ear. Morning, she said, casual, unaware, or pretending to be. Morning, I replied, voice neutral. Neutrality felt like armor. She hummed, pouring herself juice. Did you sleep well? I hesitated. Fine. Her eyebrows lifted, a flicker of suspicion in her gaze. Fine. Yes, fine. My voice cracked slightly. I hated it. I hated myself for cracking. She didn't ask more. That small mercy felt like a betrayal too, ignoring the elephant in the room. Later I met Mark, my closest friend, for breakfast. He looked at me over his coffee, eyes sharp. You look off. Something happened? I hesitated, then shook my head. Nothing. Work stuff. Mark didn't believe me. Come on, you can tell me. You never bottle things up. I swallowed hard. It's complicated. I'm fine. He didn't push further, but I could feel his doubt. I wanted to confess everything, but the words stuck in my throat. How could I say it? That she, my wife, was laughing, whispering, maybe touching someone else while I slept down the hall, thinking everything was okay? At work, I watched my phone buzz repeatedly. Messages from her, casual. Nothing unusual. I scrolled, looking for hints, evidence, something to justify my suspicion. There was nothing. My chest tightened. If I was imagining it, how cruel would that be, to accuse her of thoughts I couldn't prove? And yet, the voice behind the door haunted me. I can't stop thinking about you. Those words burned in my skull. I felt small, invisible, as if everything I had built, every ounce of loyalty, had been worthless. That night I called Mark. I don't know what to do, I admitted, voice low, raw. Do you want to confront her? He asked. I can't, I whispered. Not yet. Not until I can think straight. Mark's sigh came through the line. You have to protect yourself too. Don't lose yourself waiting for her to come back to sense. I know. But did I? I spent hours replaying every memory, every laugh, every late-night conversation. Moments I thought were intimate now seemed like lies I believed too easily. How could I have missed it? How did I convince myself that love alone could shield me from betrayal? Days passed and I walked around the apartment like a ghost. Her presence was palpable, though she didn't suspect I knew. I passed her door countless times, pretending nothing happened. My chest ached with unspoken words, the weight of truths I couldn't voice. And in those quiet hours, clarity began to seep in. I realized something terrifying and liberating. Life as I knew it had ended. The person I trusted most had chosen someone else, not out of rage but out of desire. And I couldn't change that. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, whispering to myself, I can't fix this. I can't fight for someone who left me behind while I stood still. Mark called again hours later. You okay? I will be, I said. And I believed it, even if it was just a flicker. Even if it hurt. That night, I lay in the darkness, alone, the house filled with the echoes of what had been and what could never return. Her laughter, the whispered words, they clung to the walls, the floor, my mind. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just listened, and I realized this was the breaking point. I didn't confront her. I didn't demand explanations. I didn't fight. I walked away silently, carrying the truth that would change everything. And for the first time I understood, nothing would ever be the same. I woke up with the memory of her voice still clinging to my ears. I can't stop thinking about you. That simple sentence, whispered in shadows, played over and over in my mind. I poured coffee, but my hands trembled slightly. I tried to focus on routine, toast, emails, shower, but it all felt hollow. At work, I noticed it first. The way Lisa, my colleague, glanced at me, then quickly looked away. Morning, I said, forcing cheer. Morning, she replied, a little too tight, too formal. I frowned. Something had shifted. Subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. I used to be part of the flow, part of the inside jokes, the shared glance across the room. Now I felt invisible. I muttered under my breath, "It's nothing. I'm imagining it." But my own voice sounded foreign. Later, during a team meeting, I suggested an idea I had spent hours refining. "If we adjust the project timeline, we can improve efficiency without adding costs," I said, glancing at Lisa for support. She smiled politely, then spoke over me. "That's a good point, but maybe we should consider an alternative that aligns with what the client requested." Her words weren't the issue, it was Evelyn's reaction. She didn't even glance my way. Instead, she nodded at Lisa's suggestion. "Yes, that's what we'll do." Good thinking. I swallowed hard, fingers tightening around my pen. I thought the timeline adjustment could help," I murmured. Evelyn smiled without warmth. "We'll keep it in mind." In that moment, I felt replaced, diminished, my contributions invisible. The betrayal wasn't loud, it was quiet, creeping like cold fog into every corner of my life. That night I called Mark. "It's different now," I said, pacing the living room. "At work, at home, everything feels off." "What do you mean?" he asked. "I'm not part of the conversation anymore. Even small things, jokes, updates, they happen without me." And my voice cracked. She smiles, laughs, acts like nothing happened. Mark was silent for a moment. "Sounds like you're seeing the truth. Maybe you've been ignoring signs for too long." I thought I was imagining things. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe in us. But now, I can't even tell what's real. The next morning, I stood in front of her, pretending calm. "You were up late?" I asked casually. She smiled, sipping her coffee. "Yeah, just some work." "Work?" I let the word hang. Her eyes met mine, a flicker of something unreadable passing across her face. "Everything okay between us?" I asked. She paused, then shrugged. "Sure. Why wouldn't it be?" Her casual deflection cut deeper than anger. I felt my chest tighten, the familiar ache of loss settling in. I realized that confronting her might not change anything. She wasn't lying to protect me, she had already moved on emotionally. At lunch, I joined Lisa in the break room. "Do you think I've been overreacting?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She hesitated, eyes flicking to the door. "I don't know. Maybe you're just stressed." "Yes, that's it. Stress," I muttered. I forced a laugh, but inside it felt hollow. I walked back to my desk, passing notes on my monitor, emails unanswered, small signs of being overlooked. The invisibility wrapped around me like a second skin. That evening, alone in my apartment, I sat on the couch staring at the floor. I thought about promises, about love, about the person I believed I knew. How did we get here? I whispered to myself. I remembered late nights she stayed silent, messages I didn't see, moments I excused as work stress. And now, this creeping distance, this replacement, quiet but absolute. I realized I couldn't hold on to the past. Love without respect was already dead, and clinging to it would only suffocate me. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Confrontation? Retreat? Maybe both. But for the first time, I understood that survival meant acknowledging the truth, even if it hurt more than anything else. I had to start seeing things clearly, not how I wanted them to be but how they were. I whispered to the empty room, "I can't stay in the shadows anymore. I need to see for myself." And in that moment, the quiet ache turned into something sharper, a resolve to face what I had ignored for too long. I didn't expect to see him. Of all the coffee shops in the city, of all the streets I could have wandered, fate had a cruel sense of humor. I sat at a corner table, pretending to read, though my eyes kept drifting toward her. She wasn't alone. He had a relaxed posture, leaning back with a grin that made my stomach twist. "You're different than anyone I've met," he said, voice low, intimate. She laughed softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I just needed to be seen. Really seen." I froze. Every word she had whispered in secret, every late-night confession, replayed in my mind. He didn't know. He had no idea who I was. And that made the sting sharper than any confrontation could. "I feel that," he said, reaching across the table. "I've never met someone who carries herself like that, like she's trapped but still burning." I clenched my fists under the table, pretending to sip my coffee. I couldn't interrupt. I couldn't speak. Not yet. Not without revealing the pieces of myself I wasn't ready to show. "You make me feel free," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't even realize how heavy it's been, until I'm with you." My heart thumped painfully. Free. That word. That same word she never said to me in years. Not once. He smiled, not noticing the tremor in my hands. You deserve that freedom. Everyone deserves it. But I'm glad it's me here when you finally get it. I felt anger, yes, but more than that, a growing clarity. She wasn't betraying me for passion. She wasn't in love with him any more than she had been with me recently. She was betraying respect. The respect I had counted on, the trust one had given freely, the loyalty I had believed mattered. She laughed, a sound that used to be for me. I never thought I'd meet someone who sees me without judgment. You never had to with me, he replied softly, and I flinched. There it was. The truth I had been avoiding. I wasn't enough. Respect, attention, presence, they had vanished long before any passion did. I breathed slowly, reminding myself not to rise from my chair, not to confront, not to scream. This wasn't a moment for rage, it was a moment for observation, for understanding, for quiet reckoning. I wish things were different, she said almost to herself. They are, he said firmly. You're finally allowed to be yourself. I closed my eyes for a second, letting the pain wash over me. Yes, this hurt. Every word cut deeper than any argument, deeper than any fight could. But clarity was forming in the wound. Betrayal wasn't loud. Betrayal whispered. Betrayal existed in choices, in silence, in absence of respect. I opened my eyes. They were smiling at each other, leaning closer, sharing small jokes and inside glances. I could have stormed in, demanded explanations, confessed every thought and feeling. But I didn't. I had realized something crucial. I didn't need to fight passion. I needed to fight for myself. I stood slowly, slipping out the door before either of them noticed. The cold air hit my face, sharp and cleansing. I breathed in deeply, letting the city hum around me. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. As I walked, my mind replayed their conversation. Every sentence, every laugh, every intimate pause, it was a confirmation of something I had started to know. Love without respect is already dead. And I had been living in its shadow for far too long. I remembered mornings when she pretended nothing was wrong, evenings when she lingered in silence, nights where I sensed a distance but refused to name it. All those small fractures had led to this moment, and now, seeing him, I finally understood why I had stayed silent. Because I had hoped for change that would never come. By the time I reached my apartment, the pain was still there, but sharper clarity had replaced the confusion. Betrayal didn't always explode, it often crept quietly like poison in a cup. And now I had tasted the bitter truth fully. I sank into the couch, hands pressed to my face, whispering, I see now. I understand. I can't let this define me. A resolve began to simmer, quiet but persistent. If she could be free without me, then I could reclaim myself without her. I didn't need confrontation, apology, or understanding from her. I needed only to rebuild the man who had been ignored, who had been replaced, who had been quiet too long. And in that cold, silent night, I felt the first stirrings of a new purpose. Not for revenge, not for love, but for myself. I whispered to the empty room, I will rise. And when I do, it will be on my terms, not because she sees me or regrets. I let the city's lights guide me home, leaving the coffee shop, leaving the past where it belonged. I waited until the apartment was quiet, until the hum of the city outside faded into the background. She was in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine, unaware that I had been standing silently in the doorway. I need to talk, I said, my voice calm, measured. She froze, then turned, raising an eyebrow. About what? About us, I replied, stepping into the room. About everything. She tilted her head, studying me. Everything? That sounds serious. It is serious, I said. I know about him. Her face didn't change. She didn't gasp, didn't deny it. She simply sighed, setting the glass down. I suppose this was coming, she said softly. I took a breath. Why? She looked away for a moment, then back at me. I was lonely. I felt unseen, like I was disappearing in my own life. With him, I could just be myself. I felt a weight settle in my chest, but I didn't shout. I didn't scream. And us? I asked quietly. Did any of it matter? It did, she admitted, voice trembling slightly. But not enough. Not in the way it should have. I studied her, searching for a hint of regret. There was none. Only explanation. Only justification. So it wasn't about him, I said. It was about what you were missing from me. She nodded slowly. Yes, I tried to tell you. I tried to reach for you. But I felt like I was falling into silence every day. I swallowed hard, feeling the sting of her words. And the moment you found someone who saw you, you chose him over me. It's not about choosing him over you, she said. It's about choosing me, finally. I needed to feel alive again. I didn't mean to hurt you. But I did. I clenched my fists, resisting the urge to throw the words back at her. I didn't need to. I already knew the depth of the wound. And the lying? The secrecy? She flinched slightly, then met my gaze. I was ashamed. I didn't want to destroy you. I just didn't know how to say it. I let the silence stretch. I could feel my pulse in my temples, my hands itching to grab her, shake her, demand justice. But I stayed calm. I had to. Anger would only humiliate me further, and I refused to give her that satisfaction. I understand why you did it, I said finally, voice quiet but firm. I don't hate you. But I can't stay. Not in this shadow of what we used to be. Not when love has turned into silence and betrayal. Her eyes widened. You're leaving? I'm stepping away, I corrected. I need to find myself again. I need to remember who I am, without you, without this weight. She lowered her gaze, shame and sadness flickering across her face. I didn't think. I thought you'd fight. I thought you'd beg. I tried to fight, I said softly. But I realized, I can't fight someone else's freedom. And I won't beg for a love that's already gone. She shook her head, tears welling up. I never wanted to hurt you. I know, I replied. But wanting isn't enough. Loving isn't enough if respect is gone. I see that now. We stood in silence for a long moment, the only sound the faint hum of the refrigerator. I felt a strange mix of grief and relief settle in my chest. Grief for what we had lost. Relief for the clarity I had gained. I need time, I said finally. Time to rebuild. Time to breathe without this weight of what isn't mine anymore. She nodded, a single tear tracing her cheek. I wish I had been better. I wish I had been enough. You weren't, I said gently, but that's not your fault entirely. You didn't know how to give yourself to me either. We both failed, but I've learned something important. Forcing love only destroys the one who still cares. I turned toward the door, feeling the finality in every step. She didn't move to stop me, and I didn't expect her to. I had said everything I needed to say without screaming, without pleading. The last thing I heard was her whisper, "Be happy." I will, I whispered back, though I wasn't sure it was true yet. But it would be. As I stepped into the hallway, I felt a calm I hadn't known in months. Clarity had replaced pain. I was walking away, not with hatred but with understanding. Survival sometimes requires letting go. And tonight I finally let go. I sat across from her at the small kitchen table, the dim light casting long shadows on the walls. I held a cup of coffee, but I didn't drink it. My mind was elsewhere, focused on the conversation I needed to have. I've been thinking, I said carefully, about us, about everything that's happened. She looked up from her phone, eyes wary. Thinking, what do you mean? I continued, choosing each word deliberately. I realized that forcing something that's no longer there, it destroys the person who still cares. And I care. Her lips parted slightly as if she expected anger, a shout, a desperate plea. None of that came. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I want to give you what you've wanted, I said, my tone steady. Freedom. She blinked, confusion evident. Freedom? Yes, I said. I'm not here to trap you in a marriage you don't want. I won't pretend this is about anger or revenge. It's about reality. You deserve to live your life, as you choose. Her hand trembled slightly as she set down the phone. I didn't expect you to be so calm. I met her gaze. Calm isn't weakness. It's clarity. I've spent too long pretending that things could go back to how they were. They can't. And holding on would only destroy what little dignity I have left. She swallowed, looking down at her hands. I thought you'd fight. I thought you'd beg me to stay. I tried to fight for us, I said softly. But I've realized fighting alone isn't love. It's denial. And I'm done denying myself, my worth, my need to survive emotionally. She finally looked at me, her eyes glossy. So, what are you saying? I'm saying I want us both to move forward, I said. I've already contacted a lawyer to start the separation process. Financials, legalities, everything. I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this to reclaim myself. She shook her head, a mix of sorrow and disbelief. I never imagined you would choose yourself like this. I leaned back, letting the weight of my words settle between us. I have to. Staying would mean clinging to a love that no longer exists. I've spent months questioning my worth, questioning why I stayed silent while you drifted away. Now I know. I need to stand up for myself, for the man I still am. Her voice broke slightly. And me? You? I said. You get the freedom you've been seeking. But understand, freedom without respect isn't love. And I can't compromise my self-respect to give you a chance at happiness that never included me fully. She looked down, twisting a napkin in her hands. I never wanted to hurt you. I know, I replied. And I don't hate you. But intentions don't erase consequences. You've made your choices and I've made mine. The difference is I refuse to let them define me in pain. I'm reclaiming my life. She glanced up, tears brimming, but no words came. I didn't push her. I didn't need to. Silence carried its own weight, a mirror reflecting the reality we both had to face. Later I met with my lawyer. Lena, calm, methodical, experienced, spread the documents across her desk. You're sure about this? She asked. I am, I said. I'm not acting out of anger or spite. I'm acting to protect myself. Good, she said. We'll make sure everything is clean. Your assets, your accounts, everything. You're prepared. I nodded, the sense of control settling into my chest like a shield. That's the plan. I don't want to leave chaos behind, just a clean break and a chance to rebuild. She smiled faintly. You're handling this better than most would. It takes strength to leave without bitterness. I've learned, I said quietly, that survival sometimes means walking away, even when love isn't dead, just gone. I'm done chasing shadows. I left her apartment that evening, carrying the quiet certainty of a man who had chosen himself. The air felt lighter even as a part of me still ached. But the ache was no longer tied to her, it was a reminder of what I had endured and what I had survived. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Each step forward was a statement. I am not broken. I am not lost. I am reclaiming my life one choice at a time. And tonight, for the first time in months, I felt the faintest spark of hope, because I was choosing me. The first morning alone was quiet in a way that made me ache. The apartment smelled like us, memories lingering in the corners. I brewed coffee, stared out the window, and let the silence sink in. My phone buzzed. It was Jason. You up, man? I am, I replied, trying to sound normal. You okay? His voice was cautious. I heard. Yeah, I'm fine, I said quickly, almost too quickly. Just adjusting. You don't sound fine. I know, I admitted. I'm getting there. He sighed. Look, you don't have to do this alone. Come over. We can talk or not talk. I just want to check on you. I smiled faintly. Thanks, Jason. I'll swing by. By the time I got to his apartment, I was already replaying the moments I couldn't forget. Every smile she gave, every lie she hid, every word I'd overheard, it all weighed on me. Coffee? He asked, sliding a mug across the table. Please, I said, wrapping my hands around the warmth. So, rumors, he began cautiously. I heard she's with him now. I set the mug down slowly. Yeah, I know. That doesn't bother you? I shook my head. It's not that I don't feel anything. It's just, it doesn't touch me the way it used to. I'm not bitter. I'm clearer. He frowned. Clearer? I realized something, I said, leaning back. Love without respect, without honesty, without consideration. It's not love. It's attachment. And attachment that hurts me is something I don't need anymore. Jason nodded slowly. You've changed. I can hear it. Stronger, calmer. I'm trying, I admitted. I'm learning to rebuild. I've started working out again. Going for runs. Focusing on work. Reclaiming my time and energy. It's small, but it matters. You deserve that, he said. More than you realize. Thanks, I said. Some days it still stings. I see her pictures online, hear things from mutual friends. But it's not agony. It's just acknowledgement. That part of my life is over and I'm still standing. That's huge, Jason said quietly. Most people crumble. I'm not most people, I replied, half joking, half serious. I've learned that losing someone who never fully valued me isn't defeat. It's liberation. And every morning I wake up, make my bed, go for a run, every small victory reminds me that I'm reclaiming power I didn't even know I had. He smiled. That's inspiring, man. Really. I'm proud of you. Thanks, I said again, though I wasn't sure I believed him. But I did believe myself more than I had in months. We fell into easy conversation after that, talking about work, old memories, and plans for the future. Each laugh, each casual exchange felt like a brick in the foundation I was rebuilding. Later I returned home. The apartment was still quiet, but it no longer felt suffocating. I unpacked a box of books, put some music on, and started reading. For the first time, I wasn't running from silence, I was filling it with purpose. I reflected on the weeks ahead. I would focus on myself, my career, my health. I would set goals, achieve them, and remind myself daily that my value didn't depend on someone else's choices. I realized that leaving her wasn't a loss, it was reclaiming what was always mine: dignity, self-respect, and emotional clarity. Each step, though small, was a declaration: I am not broken. I am not defined by her betrayal. I am alive and I am rebuilding. As night fell, I stood by the window looking at the city lights. The ache in my chest was still there, softer now, like a faint echo of the storm I had survived. I let it be without fighting it. It was a reminder, not a prison. I whispered to myself, almost like a vow, I will rise from this. I will be whole. And I will choose me every day. That night, for the first time in months, I slept without dread. I didn't know how far the road ahead went, but I knew I was walking it on my terms. And that was enough. It had been months since I'd truly thought about her every day. Not that I had forgotten. How could I forget? But the edge of pain had dulled, replaced by a quiet, observant patience. Life moved forward and I moved with it. Jason called one evening. Hey, have you heard about her? I froze mid-sip of my coffee. Heard what? Word around the office. It seems her new guy isn't exactly what she thought. I leaned back, trying to appear nonchalant. Is that so? Yeah, he said, lowering his voice. He's pulling away. Doesn't show up when she expects, avoids certain meetings. People are talking. I stared out the window, letting the words sink in. It wasn't satisfaction. It wasn't glee. It was observation. Karma doesn't need me to push it. It simply unfolds. Do you think she'll call me? I asked quietly, more to myself than to him. Jason hesitated. I don't know. Maybe. She has asked about you a couple of times. I frowned, feeling neither alarm nor longing. And what would I say if she did? Don't know, depends on what you want, Jason replied cautiously. What I want, I muttered, is to be left untouched by someone who once broke me. A week later my phone buzzed. Her name flashed. My thumb hovered, but I answered. Hi, she said, her voice slightly uncertain, almost fragile. Hello, I said evenly. It's been a while. Yes. I just wanted to check, see how you're doing. I chuckled softly, a sound devoid of emotion. I'm doing well. Life's busy but good. And you? She hesitated. I'm okay. Things haven't been easy. Is that right? I asked calmly, letting the words stretch. I hear people talk. She swallowed audibly. I didn't mean to. I interrupted gently. I'm not judging. I'm simply observing. There was silence, and I could almost hear her scrambling for words. I thought he cared, she said finally, voice tinged with regret. But it's not what I expected. I see, I replied. Sometimes reality doesn't match our expectations. You learn that the hard way. She hesitated again. I thought I made the right choice. You did what you thought was right at the time. That's all anyone can do, I said evenly. But choices have consequences. That's life. Ryan, she trailed off, the hesitation clear. I knew the other man's name had slipped her tongue in thought, not out loud. Yes, I said quietly. Sometimes the people we chase aren't capable of being what we hope. I just wanted to see if, she faltered, if there's a chance. I shook my head slowly. There's nothing to go back to. Not because I stopped caring, but because I learned to value myself. I've moved forward. You need to move forward too, with the lessons you've earned. Lessons? She repeated, voice barely above a whisper. Yes, I said. Every decision has weight. Every action leaves a mark. And we have to live with that. I've learned that living with dignity is more important than chasing what no longer serves me. There was a long pause, and I imagined her processing, perhaps for the first time, that she hadn't just lost me, she had misjudged loyalty, trust, and respect. I'm sorry, she said at last. I let it hang in the air. I don't need your apologies. They wouldn't change anything. But it's good you said it. Sometimes owning our mistakes is the first step to real change. She didn't speak after that. I didn't press. Silence is powerful. Silence teaches. Silence shows the reversal of roles. Later I shared the call with Jason. She reached out, I said casually. Jason raised an eyebrow. How'd you feel? Calm, I said. Detached. Observing. For the first time, I'm not seeking validation from her regret. I'm complete without it. That's impressive, he said, admiration clear in his voice. I've learned patience is stronger than revenge. Watching the consequences unfold naturally without interference is its own justice, I said. I don't need to act. Karma has its course. Weeks passed. I continued my routine: work, exercise, reading, meeting friends. Every day was a quiet testament to self-reclamation. I no longer defined my worth by her choices or her misjudgments. Once I saw them together in a photo she posted online. She looked uneasy. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't holding her the way she had hoped. And I felt nothing. Not triumph. Not satisfaction. Only quiet acknowledgement. Life has a way of balancing itself. That night I stood on my balcony watching the city lights. The ache that lingered in the past was now distant, a faint echo. I whispered to myself, I am free. I am whole. I am enough. And I will remain so without anyone's permission. For the first time in months I slept fully without dread. Not because she suffered, but because I had risen above needing her regret to validate my life. I had found independence and with it moral clarity. The power no longer resided with her. It resided with me. I agreed to meet her at the small cafe we used to visit on weekends. I didn't need to. I wanted clarity, not confrontation. I arrived early, choosing a corner table where I could watch without being watched. She entered, eyes wide with uncertainty, searching as if she hoped I'd changed my mind. Hi, she said softly, sliding into the seat across from me. Hello, I replied evenly, folding my hands on the table. My voice carried calm, nothing else. She looked down at her hands, twisting them nervously. I've been thinking about everything. About us. I nodded, giving her space. Go on. She lifted her eyes, brimming with hesitation. I know I hurt you. I made choices that I shouldn't have. And You cheated on trust, I said simply, cutting through the apology. I understand mistakes happen, but actions define us. You abandoned what we had. Her lips trembled. I was lonely. I felt unheard, unseen. And then I met him. I thought he would understand me in ways you didn't. But I was wrong. I see that now. I stayed silent, listening. Not because I had to, but because she needed to say it. And because every word was a testament to her too-late realization. I was selfish, she whispered. Do you think there's a chance to fix things? I looked at her, really looked for the first time in months. The woman who had once been my world now seemed fragile and unsteady, stripped of certainty. Love, I said carefully, cannot survive betrayal without accountability. Not real love. You broke that trust and there's no going back to before. She flinched as if my words cut deeper than she expected. I didn't know. I thought I could. You thought, I repeated, letting the words hang. But thought doesn't undo choice. It doesn't erase what happened. And it doesn't rebuild what was lost. Her hands were trembling now. She reached for mine almost instinctively. I let her, then slowly withdrew. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you, I said, voice steady. I left because I began to respect myself. I realized my worth isn't tied to your approval, your love, or your mistakes. I understand, she said, voice small, fragile. I know it's too late. But I had to say it. I had to. You had to confess, I said quietly. And I hear you. I accept that. But acceptance doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean I return to what no longer serves me. She looked at me, searching for anger, for bitterness, for the man she thought she had destroyed. Are you angry? No, I said, and for the first time I meant it completely. I'm not angry. I'm stronger than anger. I'm clearer than rage. I've moved beyond needing your regret to feel whole. She swallowed, tears brimming. I never realized how much I had. How much you gave. And You didn't realize because you weren't ready, I said gently. Timing is cruel. Choices are permanent. And lessons come at their own pace. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I wish I had known sooner. I do too, I said softly. But wishes don't change reality. I chose myself when no one else did. That's my truth. That's my power. And that's what allows me to leave this conversation without hate, without lingering resentment. She trembled, her voice barely audible. You're amazing. I'm simply whole now, I interrupted calmly. I'm not amazing for leaving. I'm amazing for choosing myself over illusion. For valuing dignity over attachment. For walking away when everyone else would have clung to what was familiar, even if it was toxic. She didn't respond. She couldn't. There was nothing left to argue, nothing left to plead. The silence was thick but not heavy. It was freeing, a quiet acknowledgement that everything had changed. I rose from the table. "Take care of yourself," I said, voice even final. She nodded, tears slipping freely now. I will try. "Thank you, for everything." I offered a small, almost imperceptible smile. "You're welcome. Remember, growth is painful but necessary. I hope you find it too." I walked out of the cafe without looking back. No one followed me, no one called after me. I didn't need closure from her. I had it already, built from truth, patience, and the knowledge that I had chosen the man I wanted to be over the shadow of someone else's mistakes. Outside, the city air felt lighter, somehow cleaner. Each step away from her was not a retreat, but an ascent. I felt the balance of my own life returning, the peace I hadn't known in months settling in. For the first time, I realized that love without respect is hollow. And leaving doesn't always destroy. Sometimes, leaving restores everything: the dignity, the clarity, and the self that had been hidden under betrayal and heartbreak. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The past belonged to her. The future belonged to me. And I walked forward. It's been months since everything changed. Months since I walked away from what no longer valued me. The apartment is quieter now, but in a good way. The silence isn't empty, it's mine. I sit by the window in the early morning light, coffee in hand, reflecting. "Still thinking about her?" Mark asked, settling across from me with his usual half-smile. I shook my head slightly. "Not really. More like, thinking about me. About what I've learned." He raised an eyebrow. "Enlightenment phase, huh?" I chuckled softly. "Something like that. I've realized I can't let someone else's choices define my worth. I survived. I'm whole now, and that matters more than any grudge or resentment." "Wow," he said. "You make it sound so easy." "It's not easy," I admitted. "It's deliberate. Every step away from the past required conscious effort. Every thought reminding me of my dignity, every moment I chose calm over anger. It wasn't instinctive. It was intentional." "Respect," Mark said, nodding slowly. "You earned it back." "I did," I said quietly. "And I didn't have to destroy anyone to get it. I didn't need revenge to feel complete. I just chose myself. And that changed everything." Sitting there, I remembered the countless nights of replaying conversations, the whispered lies, the absence of apologies that would have mattered. "I used to define myself by her affection," I said. "By her presence. And when that vanished, I felt empty. Now I know, I was only ever empty if I allowed her actions to control me." My phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. "Dinner tonight? Want to celebrate your promotion." I smiled, feeling that old spark of connection that wasn't tethered to expectation or need. "Looks like life keeps moving," I said aloud. "It does," Mark replied, leaning back. "And you? You moving with it, not against it?" I nodded. "Exactly. I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone anymore. Not to her. Not to him. Not to anyone who doubted me. I'm here and that's enough." The conversation drifted into work updates, shared stories, and laughter. I noticed how light I felt, how unburdened. For the first time in years, the weight of betrayal wasn't dragging me down, it was behind me. Later, walking home, I saw couples in the park, children chasing kites, life unfolding in its unpredictable, beautiful chaos. I didn't feel envy. I didn't feel longing. I felt clarity. My past didn't define me. My mistakes, my heartbreak, they only strengthened me. At home, I poured another cup of coffee, sitting in the same chair by the window. I thought about the man I had been when I first discovered the betrayal. Angry, lost, desperate for validation. And now, calm, grounded, aware. I was a man who chose dignity over attachment, clarity over confusion, self-respect over resentment. I texted Sarah, another close friend. "Can't believe how far I've come. Let's meet and toast to surviving." Her reply was immediate. "Absolutely. You've earned it, my friend." I smiled at the simplicity of it. No grand gestures, no dramatic declarations. Just quiet acknowledgement, recognition, and shared joy. That's what life felt like now. Quiet, strong, meaningful. I thought about the past one last time. About her, about him, about the emptiness I once carried. "I forgive in a sense," I whispered. "Not for them but for me. So I can breathe without holding on to poison." I stretched, feeling my body loosen. My mind was clear. My heart steady. I wasn't waiting for karma, for apologies, or for validation. I had what I needed: self-knowledge, self-worth, and the freedom to be the man I wanted to be. I poured the last of my coffee into the sink and turned toward the mirror. I studied my reflection, seeing lines of pain, yes, but also lines of survival, strength, and wisdom. I smiled faintly. The man staring back at me wasn't defined by betrayal. He wasn't marked by what he lost. He was marked by what he had chosen, himself. I opened the window, letting the breeze brush against my face. Life continued below, indifferent, unpredictable, relentless. And I was ready for it. Calm, patient, empowered. Because I didn't need to destroy anyone. I didn't need to chase revenge. I didn't need to prove I was right or superior. I simply walked forward, fully, consciously, into a life I had chosen to create. And that made all the difference.